Over 12,000 people were already dead, and yet here he stood, President Ibrahim Traore, unarmed, surrounded by masked fighters, staring into the eyes of the man who'd haunted Burkina Faso's nightmares for over a decade. The air was dry and bitter. Heat shimmered off the sand as 3 black flag trucks idled behind them, engines rumbling low like growling beasts. A few feet away, El Gazawi, leader of the shadow of the Sahel, butcher of villages, ghost of the desert, lowered his hand slowly and said the words that could either save a country or sink it completely. "You came alone." Traore didn't blink. "You asked me to." They stood in the silence that followed, soldier and insurgent, head of state and most wanted rebel, caught between history and a choice that would echo far beyond this forgotten stretch of desert. Neither man moved. Around them, gunmen stood ready. No backup, no witnesses, no way out. Then, finally, El Gazawi spoke again. "Come, let's talk. The world does not know what we are about to try." And with that, they walked into the heat toward a small tent beneath an acacia tree, where the fate of a nation would begin to change. No one in the capital knew where their president had gone. Not his guards, not his advisors, not even the vice president. Just hours before, Ibrahim Traore had walked out of the presidential compound dressed in plain clothes, climbed into an unmarked jeep, and vanished north. He had left behind a city waking up to its normal pain. Markets half open, children walking to school under armed escort, neighborhoods buzzing with silent fear. Another village had burned the night before. 23 more dead. A familiar report. A tired headline. Life under siege again. In his office that morning, Traore had stared at the intelligence brief with the same hollow feeling he'd come to know too well. More killings. More displacement. Another child dead in a town no one in power had visited in years. His generals had offered the same answers. More troops, more patrols, more air support. None of it mattered. None of it worked. Because the truth was this: Burkina Faso was bleeding out. And no one, not the army, not the allies, not the foreign advisors, knew how to stop it. That's when the note came, slipped into his hand by an elderly imam during a routine public ceremony. No fanfare, no explanation, just a folded paper and a whisper from El Gazawi. The name alone was enough to freeze the blood of any man in uniform. El Gazawi, the leader of the deadliest insurgent group in the region. A man the international community had tried to capture or kill for nearly 10 years. A man said to be more myth than flesh. The note was short. Come alone. No guards. No weapons. Tomorrow. Coordinates enclosed. A chance for peace. It was madness. A trap, surely. Every advisor would forbid it. Every security protocol screamed against it. But Traore didn't hesitate. Because deep down, in the place where doubt and desperation lived, he knew this. Talking to monsters might be the only way to stop becoming one. So he left. Quietly. No fanfare. No convoy. Just the clothes on his back and the desert road ahead. The farther north he drove, the more it felt like entering another country. Paved roads gave way to cracked dirt paths. Green fields turned to dust. Empty homes stood like ghosts along the highway. His memories came flooding back. Years spent here as a young military officer. Villages he'd patrolled. Families he'd shared meals with. Many of them were gone now, swallowed by war. 6 hours in, he reached the location from a note. A stretch of dry land near the Mali border, where no government forces dared to go. He waited. At first, only the wind. Then, in the distance, dust rising. 3 pickups. Black flags. Armed men. They came fast. This was it. Traore got out of the jeep. He kept his hands raised. He didn't move. As the trucks formed a semicircle around him, the fighters jumped out. Their faces were covered. Their rifles pointed. One man stepped out from the center vehicle. He didn't wear a mask. He didn't need to. Muhammad El Gazawi was younger than Traore expected. Maybe late 30s. Sharp eyes. A calm walk. And something else. An air of someone who'd once worn a uniform too. "You really came?" El Gazawi said. "I don't have much time," Traore answered. "You might not have any," the rebel leader said flatly, before his face softened. "But you passed the test. He turned and pointed to a modest tent set up nearby. "We speak out of this, son." Inside, there were no luxuries. Just a woven mat, 2 cushions, a low table with water and tea. They sat, 2 men, born of the same soil, now on opposite sides of a war that had buried thousands. "I didn't come here to beg," Traore said. "And I didn't ask you here to gloat," El Gazawi replied. He poured water into 2 cups. "We are both tired, I think. Our people are more tired. Then why keep fighting?" "Because nothing changes otherwise," El Gazawi said. "You think I like war? I lost my brother in your prisons. I lost my home, my friends. I studied engineering once in Ouagadougou. I built things. Now I destroy." Traore listened. The stories were familiar. Grievances, loss, revenge born in government crackdowns, and hopelessness. They'd radicalized a generation. Traore had read the reports. But now, here it was in flesh and memory. He took a long breath. "So what now?" "That depends," said El Gazawi, "on what you're ready to offer. Not to me. To the people we both claim to protect." They talked for hours. No aides, no cameras, just quiet, heavy conversation. Autonomy, withdrawal of foreign troops, amnesty, development, trust. Traore didn't promise anything, but he offered something more valuable, a beginning. 1 province, he said, 30 days, a ceasefire. You pull back your fighters. We pull back ours. No attacks, no ambushes. We work together, just for 1 month, as proof that something better is possible. El Gazawi was silent. "Choose the province yourself," Traore added. After a moment, the rebel replied, "Somme, my home." Traore nodded. It was bold. It was dangerous. And it was exactly what he wanted to hear. They planned the details under the falling sun. A handshake sealed it. They would try. And if it worked, it could change everything. But first, they had to survive the next 30 days. The message came 6 days later, just after midnight. "The hawks are in their nests. The doves may fly." That was all it said. No signature, no explanation. But Traore knew who it was from. The shadow of the Sahel had stood down. El Gazawi had done his part. Now it was his turn. By dawn, orders went out, carefully worded, quietly delivered. No public announcements, no headlines, just a subtle shift in military posture across Somme province. Artillery was pulled back, roadblocks dismantled. A new force was assembled. Community patrol units made up of army soldiers and local volunteers, many of them former enemies. Traore moved quickly, knowing every hour counted. The longer this fragile peace held, the harder it would be to kill. Still, he expected it to break. Everyone did. The first week passed in silence. No gunfire, no bombings, no ambushes. But silence in the north didn't mean peace. It meant everyone was waiting, suspicious, tense, afraid to hope. By week 2, something shifted. Markets reopened. Tentatively, farmers returned to fields they hadn't touched in years. At first, only the bold ones. Then others followed. Children began to play outside again, their laughter nervous but real. And then Traore did something no president before him had ever dared. He went to Jibwa. The provincial capital had lived under siege for almost 4 years. Roads in and out were lined with wreckage, burned-out vehicles, craters from old blasts, checkpoints abandoned in fear. The locals had learned to live with the constant threat of death. Most had never seen a president in their lifetime. Now, without ceremony, without cameras, he walked their streets. People stared. Some cheered. Some cried. Some simply watched, too stunned to react. He brought engineers, doctors, water tanks, food, tools to rebuild what the war had erased. And he listened to old women who'd buried their sons, to young boys who only knew life with guns, to teachers with no schools, to farmers with no crops. "We didn't know you remembered us," one man told him, tears in his eyes. Traore nodded. "I didn't forget. I just had to find a way to come back." What the people didn't know was that El Gazawi had also been in Jibwa the night before. He, too, was listening, making sure his fighters kept their distance, watching how the community responded. They never met face to face this time. Instead, a secure phone line buzzed between them daily. "Your visit had an impact," El Gazawi said one night. But we are being watched. Hardliners from Mali have entered. They want to break this. Can you hold them? Traore asked. For now. But my fighters need more than your words. They need proof this isn't just another trick. The third week brought challenges. A rogue faction planted an IED on a supply road. Traore's forces disarmed it before it exploded. Later, a junior army commander, ignoring the ceasefire orders, raided a village suspected of hiding militants. It was a mistake, and Traore acted fast. The commander was publicly relieved and sent to a remote post. Word spread quickly. This president was serious. By week 4, other provinces started paying attention. Reports of peace in Somme reached villages hundreds of kilometers away. The silence was loud and impossible to ignore. Foreign embassies weren't pleased. The French ambassador called an emergency meeting. This creates a dangerous power vacuum, he warned. It creates an opportunity, Traore answered calmly. One your forces couldn't create in 10 years. The ambassador left the meeting without shaking his hand. Date 28. Jibwa. Traore stepped in front of the cameras. Behind him stood local leaders, elders, imams, women's groups, teachers. Many had not spoken to one another in years. But today they stood as one. A month ago, Traore began, I made a decision most people would call reckless. I met with the man the world calls a terrorist. I met him not because I agreed with him, but because I wanted the killing to stop. Gasps rippled through the press. Some scribbled furiously. Others froze, stunned. I did not tell the army. I did not tell our allies. Because I knew they would stop me. And I cannot let them. 12,000 Burkinabe are dead. Entire towns erased. And what have we gained? Nothing. So I chose a different path. His voice didn't tremble. It rang. This ceasefire in Somme was not a trick. It was not a surrender. It was a test. For 28 days, not a single civilian has died in conflict there. Children are back in school. Markets are full. Hope has returned to a place abandoned by the rest of us. He paused. Let the words settle. Now we expand. Yutulin and Yaga provinces are next. Same plan. Gradual military withdrawal. Joint community patrols. Development teams on the ground within days. He turned toward the cameras. To the fighters still hiding in the bush, I say this. Come home. We will not forget the past. Justice will come. But so will forgiveness if you choose peace. Back in the palace that night, his head of security, Colonel Wedriogo, stood in silence. You've gone too far, the colonel said. You think the army will accept this? The French? They're already talking about pulling support. Traore looked him in the eye. Then let them. This is our country. You're risking everything. I know. That's why I'm not asking for permission. In the months that followed, the experiment grew. 5 provinces, then 8. It wasn't perfect. There were flare-ups, ambushes, betrayals, but they were fewer, and they were punished by both sides. El Gazawi's own men began turning over rogue elements. In one case, his fighters stopped a foreign jihadist unit trying to cross the Mali border. They captured them, disarmed them, and delivered them to local elders with a message. This is not your war anymore. Trust, slow and painful, began to build. In a country used to death, peace was the bigger shock. Then came a moment no one saw coming. 6 months after the desert handshake, Traore invited El Gazawi to Ouagadougou. Not as a prisoner, as a participant. Peace talks. Televised. Public. Unthinkable. 2 cabinet ministers resigned in protest. Victims' groups marched in the streets. France issued a formal condemnation. But Traore held firm. And when El Gazawi arrived, disarmed, escorted, but unmasked, the country held its breath. The next 2 weeks would test everything. And before it was over, one voice would cut through the anger and rewrite the story completely. They filled the great hall in silence. Military generals, tribal elders, survivors, former fighters, foreign observers. Some refused to sit near each other. Others avoided eye contact altogether. A thick wall of tension hung over the room like smoke. At the front sat President Traore. To his right, his ministers, uneasy but present. To his left, Muhammad El Gazawi, the man once called Africa's most dangerous terrorist, now wearing a plain white tunic and no weapons. He had walked into Ouagadougou under heavy security, but by his own choice. And now, he sat facing his enemies. Some had lost family to his fighters. Some still wanted him dead. The first day of talks felt impossible. Accusations flew. Old wounds reopened. A general called it treason. A victims group demanded El Gazawi be arrested on the spot. One speaker walked out mid-session. Another spat on the floor. Traore didn't flinch. He let it unfold. Because this was the price of peace. It wasn't silence. It was truth. On day 3, during a heated exchange about justice for the war's many victims, a young woman in the audience stood up without waiting for permission. Her name was Awa. She looked no older than 22. "I lost everything in this war," she said quietly. "My parents, my 2 brothers, my village. We were attacked by men who flew no flag and answered to no law." The room stilled. "I came here because I wanted to scream. I wanted to see the face of the man responsible and tell him what he did." She turned to El Gazawi. "I do not forgive you. Not now. Maybe not ever." He looked down. "But I also know this," Awa continued. "If we keep living only in revenge, nothing changes. My family is gone, but other families are still alive, and I want them to stay that way." Her voice trembled, but she didn't stop. "I don't want more speeches. I want results. I want the killing to stop. I want my little cousins to go to school without dying on the road. If this deal, this dangerous, stupid, hopeful deal, is the only chance we get, then let's try it. At least try it." Silence swallowed the room. A few nodded. Others wiped tears. Even some soldiers dropped their eyes. Awa sat down, and from that moment, the conversation shifted. Over the next 10 days, progress came in slow pieces. A joint Truth and Reconciliation Commission was agreed upon, where victims could speak and perpetrators could confess under oath. Justice wouldn't be erased, but it would be reimagined. Former insurgents would be offered integration into local security forces, not national ranks. They would work under civilian leadership, with community oversight. Traore insisted on it. Foreign military bases would be closed, starting with the largest French outpost outside Ouagadougou. That alone sparked outrage in Western capitals. But Traore stood firm. If peace depends on foreign soldiers, it was never real to begin with. Decentralized governance was next. Northern provinces would elect their own administrators. Budget control would shift to local councils. Education could follow both national curriculum and local traditions. French wasn't going away, but it wouldn't be forced. By the end, they had a document, the Ouagadougou Accord. It wasn't perfect. No one pretended it was. But it was real, and that was enough. The day they signed it, El Gazawi stood once more beside Traore, not as a shadow hiding in the desert, but as a man taking public responsibility. He didn't ask for forgiveness, but he promised not to disappear. He would serve on the Transitional Northern Council, working under national oversight. His fighters who chose peace would disarm publicly. Those who refused would be declared outlaws by both sides. Outside the hall, protests raged. But across the north, something else happened. People started coming home. 1 year later, Traore stood on the edge of a village in Somme province. The same province where it had all started. Where the first handshake happened. The first ceasefire held. Now, the village hummed with life. Children ran past rows of new homes. Women sold tomatoes in the market. A teacher rang the bell at a newly reopened school. And beside Traore stood El Gazawi. No security detail. No crowd. Just 2 men watching what they had started. "Did you think this was possible?" Traore asked quietly, "when you sent that note?" El Gazawi took a moment. "I didn't think it was likely, but I knew we had to try. I was tired of burying boys with no future." They stood in silence. "I still get death threats," El Gazawi added with a dry smile. "So do I," Traore replied. From behind them came a group of elders. An old woman, maybe in her 70s, stepped forward. Her hands were worn and weathered. Her eyes clear. "You two brought back our homes," she said simply. "But the road ahead is still long." She looked at both of them. "Will you walk it together?" Neither man answered immediately, because the truth was they didn't know. Traore faced a divided government. an impatient population, and foreign powers still trying to meddle. El Gazawi faced distrust from his own ranks, whispers of betrayal, and the hard task of turning fighters into citizens. But they both understood one thing: going back was not an option. "We'll walk as far as we can," Traore finally said. "And if we fall," El Gazawi added, "someone else must take the next step." The woman nodded, satisfied. As the sun dipped low over the fields, they watched the children play. Their laughter floated on the wind, a sound that had once vanished from these lands. The guns were quiet now. Not gone, but quiet. And in that quiet, a new story was being written. Not with easy victories or loud promises, but with broken men trying to rebuild a broken place. A dangerous deal had been made. 12,000 had died. But for the first time in a generation, there was a real chance, however fragile, for peace. And this time, it belonged to the people of Burkina Faso.